Hi kids, welcome to my kitchen. With the winter holidays upon us, I thought I'd share some of my candy recipes with you. I make a lot of candy during the holidays and pass them out to my friends, family, and co-workers, neighbors, anybody that likes candy. These are some very simple recipes. Anyone can make them, and I hope you enjoy them. Right now we're going to start with cashew fudge. It's actually a cheater's fudge, which means you're not going to be standing over a hot stove stirring that marshmallow cream mixture until it reaches a certain stage. Softball, hardball, I don't remember which it is. But this one's quite simple and only takes four ingredients if you're adding cashews. You can make like walnut fudge or just plain chocolate fudge or peanut butter fudge. A word of caution, if you make the peanut butter fudge, make a double batch because it'll be the first thing gone. And what we're going to do, we're going to start with a medium-sized saucepan. We're going to turn the heat on to medium. You will need one 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, not evaporated. Pour that into your pan. And I will post the full recipe in the description bar so that you will have it. You can print it out and use it however you like. And I'm wearing gloves because sometimes making candy can be messy and sticky, and it just seems a little bit more sanitary, I guess. Alright. Next, you will need 14 ounces of chocolate chips. I try to stay away from the store brands. I prefer like Nestle's, Hershey's, Reese's, because they tend to set up better than the store brands do. And most of them now, the peanut butter chips I know are in a 10-ounce bag. So if you're making a single batch, you would need a bag and a half. If you're doing like the chocolate chips, and this is just my personal favorite, I like the Special Dark. This is a 12-ounce bag, so I'm going to need a few more. I've got an extra bag there to sprinkle in. But anyway, add that to the sweet condensed milk. Here's my partial bag. I'm just going to pour all that in there. And now we're going to stir over medium heat constantly. Stir constantly until the chips are just melted. You don't want it to come to a boil, you don't want it to get too hot. But we're just going to have it until just melted. Okay, I wanted to change the camera angle again so you can see me stirring. And the consistency of the chips here. And this will actually get done quite rapidly, so you want to stay on top of it here. And you can see it's starting to thicken, and the chips are almost there, almost melted. Alright, I'm going to turn the heat off, remove it from the heat. Now we're going to add a splash of vanilla, about a teaspoon, a little more than a teaspoon. Just put a splash in there. And about 4 ounces of cashews, or however many you like. Just sprinkle in however many you like. Give it a good stir. And it's very thick right now. Okay. Now I've got an 8x8 square pan here, lined with foil, all ready to go. Double batch, of course, would be a 13x9 pan. Take your fudge batter, plop it down in there. And of course you will always have a little bit stuck to the pan, and that's where the privilege of being the cook comes in handy, because you get to lick the pan unless you've got little children in the kitchen with you who are watching you or helping you. Alrighty, we're going to spread that out. And it doesn't have to be pretty. I mean, when you cut it, it's fudge. I mean, people don't care. All they want is to eat it because it's sugar and chocolate. Alright, we've got that all spread out nice and neat there. We're going to put this in the refrigerator for 2 hours. Sometimes you can do up to overnight. I like to do overnight because it firms up better. But refrigerate for 2 hours, then it will lift easily out with the foil or the wax paper, and cut it to your liking and serve. Okay, it's been a couple hours and it looks like our fudge is set. It's nice and firm, and it should lift out easily with the wax paper underneath there. Let's cut it up and get it ready to eat. One of the things I like best about this recipe, it's 3 or 4 ingredients, 5 minutes on the stove tops, 2 hours in the fridge, and you've got fudge that tastes just like you slaved over a hot stove for hours, stirring and stirring and checking the temperature and the stage that it's at. As you can see, it's nice and firm. Nice solid piece of there. Cheater's fudge. Whoever came up with this idea should be a national hero. Okay, we're back with another recipe. This time I am making peppermint bark, and this is a 2-ingredient recipe. You will need 1 pound of candy coating. It's called candy coating or almond bark. It looks like this in the package, depending on where you go. I'm using a whole pound, and I'm also using some Starlight mints that I have crushed up and put in a baggie. And you can make it coarse. It doesn't have to be powdery fine, although you can see there's a lot of powder in there, but that's fine. And I'm using the vanilla flavored bark for this recipe. After this, which I'm not going to film, but I'm also going to make a cashew bark with the chocolate, which is totally different than the fudge, and you'll see why once this sets up and everything and I get it all broken up. Be creative and use different ingredients for your flavoring of the bark, I guess you could say. You could use, say, M&M's or Chex Mix, stuff like that. In this case, I'm using the peppermint bark at the moment. You want to get you want to do a double boiler method here, which is 2 pans that fits inside of each other. You can see that pan sits inside. You want to put enough water in the bottom of the pan, so that it is touching this pan here. You want the water to be hot but not boiling. Please do not boil it. The pan should be hot to the touch, but you should still be able to touch it. And we're going to add the almond bark in here, and we're going to slowly stir it. And as you can see, it's starting to melt. And this does take a little while to get it all melted, but it will get there. I have prepared a baking sheet with a piece of wax paper, which is where we're going to put it pour it once it's ready to go. Now, something you should know, when you're doing the candy coating or the almond bark in the double boiler method, if you get water in your mixture, it will make the mixture actually congeal or get very hard. And if that were to happen, a simple solution is to have some vegetable shortening, which comes in a can like Crisco, not the oil, but have some vegetable shortening on hand. And then just add like a teaspoon at a time and stir it, and it will thin back up. So don't fret and think that you lost your whole batch of chocolate because it happened to get some water in there. Now we've got thoroughly melted chocolate here. I'm going to add some of the peppermint pieces. Then this is just to taste. I mean, there's no measurements need to follow. Just whatever you think looks good. You can use chopped up candy canes. If you want, get some of the red and green ones and add a little color to it. But you want to incorporate all of the candy so that it's thoroughly coated. Okay, that looks pretty good to me right there. Ooh. And now we're just going to pour it onto our wax paper. And then spread it out nice and thin there. And it doesn't have to look perfect because you're going to break it up anyway once it cools. If you want this to get done faster, I usually stick it in the freezer for about 10 minutes and then it'll set up in about 10 minutes. And then you can break it up, which we'll do here as soon as it's done. Alright, there we go, peppermint bark. I've taken our bark, our peppermint bark, out of the freezer. You can see it's all nice and solid there, and we're going to break it up, and it's ready to eat. And this breaks up pretty easy. You just take your wax paper and fold it up a little bit. And it doesn't have to be any uniform size. It's just supposed to be candy. There you go. Of course, the chef has to taste it. And just put it in a container and enjoy. Okay, this recipe is one of my favorites because it's crunchy, salty, and sweet. And what woman in the world doesn't love that combination? As you can see, I have already melted another pound of the chocolate, melting candy or almond bark, whatever you prefer. And I've made it a little bit thinner than the last. As you can see, it just kind of rolls off the spoon, real nice and thin. But you don't want to make it too thin. It's just a process that you have to play with. Get you a bag of pretzels, 14 ounce, not quite a pound. And I like the mini pretzels. You can also, if you would like, you can crunch these up and make it into a chocolate bark with pretzels. But I like my pretzels whole, just because I like it. Throw a handful of them in there, get you a slotted spoon, big slotted, flat slotted spoon if you have one. Stir them around, get them all good and coated. Coat them real good, and then just scoop them out. Let that chocolate drip off of there a little bit. Have you a tray with some wax paper ready to go. Yeah, okay, that looks good. Dump them out. And then we're going to spread them out once we get them on the wax paper so they're not all sticking together. Unless, of course, that's something you prefer. You could do that if you'd like. Personally, I like individual pretzels. So I'm going to separate them. And once they're separated, I'm going to put them in the freezer for 5 to 10 minutes. Let the chocolate harden, and they'll be ready to go. I'm also going to do a batch of these in white. Usually I can do a whole bag of pretzels with 1 pound of the chocolate, melting chocolate. So it will make quite a bit of candy. And if you have ever bought these in the grocery store in the little individual snack size packages, you know how expensive they can be. So when you make them yourself, you're really saving a bundle of money. Alrighty, our pretzels are all set up. As you can see, they're stuck to the wax paper, and they break off easily. So, and of course, you'll have spots where there's not chocolate on everything. But just peel them off the wax paper, and do another batch. Put it in the freezer, and fill up your container until it's full. I found this recipe on the internet probably 6-7 years ago. It's called cake balls. Never heard of them before, but I tried them, loved them. Everybody loved them. So the next year I made every single cake variety I can think of, and still ran out. And this is a really simple dessert or candy, I guess you could say. The only thing is, it's extremely time consuming. You want to buy a packaged cake mix, any packaged cake mix. Like I have the carrot cake, this is the triple chocolate fudge. I have a carrot cake mix and cream cheese frosting. That's already in the freezer right now. I'm going to show you one of the steps here to prepare it before you turn it into candy. What you want to do is prepare it as according to instructions. I like baking it in the 13 by 9 because it's just easier to put it together. You want to let it cool for a little bit. It still needs to be warm, and you take it out of the oven when you get ready to do this step. Not hot, but warm. And you want to take your frosting, and this is the fun part. You're going to totally destroy this cake. Take the frosting and just throw it on the cake. Yep. On the cake. We're not going to be spreading this, as you will soon find out. Okay, take an ordinary kitchen fork and proceed to mash everything together. Stir it up into a big globby mess. When this gets finished, it's going to look like cookie dough. And try to be a little neater than I'm being at the moment. It seems like it's going to jump out of the pan here. But once we get this all blended, we're going to put it in a freezer container and freeze it for at least 2 hours, so that way it turns into a consistency that you can work with. I like to freeze it overnight just to make sure it's good and solid. It's not really solid. You'll see when you make it, if you make it, the type of consistency it is. It's not all gooey mess like it is now. But once it's frozen, you're going to shape them into balls and then dip them into your melting chocolate or your almond bark and turn it into cake. Candy cake, I guess you want to call it, a candy cake. But yeah, since the cake is warm, it kind of melts the frosting into it, makes it a little easier to blend. If you were to do this with a completely cool cake, it would be an even bigger mess than what I'm making. But just kind of eyeball it, and you can kind of tell when it's all moist with the frosting and everything there. I guess if you were brave and you wanted to do it with your hands, you could go in there and smush it all together with your hands, kind of like you would if you're making a meatloaf or something. But yeah, now you've got this big gloppy wet mess of cake. Doesn't look very appetizing, but once you dip it into the melting chocolate, you'd be surprised at how awesome this is. Alrighty, let's see if I can do this without getting it all over the floor and myself. And one of the good things about this recipe is if you have to, let's say, make a cake for a party for somebody, you can do this and have 60 or 60, you can have up to 100 individual balls or servings, and people can just help themselves. You don't have to worry about them saying, oh, I want a big piece, or I want a little piece. They all get their own piece. And the bad part is, because of their shape and size, it's easy to eat more than you intend. Because once you start eating them and you find out how good they are, next thing you know, you've had 3 or 4 pieces of actual cake instead of just a little individual bite-sized piece. Alright, this is going to go in the freezer for a couple hours, and then I'll show you how to scoop them out and dip them in the chocolate. Okay, now we're going to take the frozen cake batter. As you can see, it's nice and solid now. And we're going to scoop it up into little balls, put them on this tray lined with wax paper because we don't want it to stick. Okay. Now, depending on the size that you make these balls, and they don't have to be perfectly round, just keep in mind that you want to have them some semblance of a round shape there. But the larger the ball, the less you'll have. So I've got a smaller one there, but I think they're too small. You want something that's just about bite size, something like that right there. But shape your balls. That sounded kind of funny, didn't it? Shape your balls. Oh, I'm such a naughty girl. Okay. And you don't necessarily need to use a melon baller like I do. I just find it's just easier for me to get it in and out of the shape. But one cake mix will make between 75 and 100 cake balls. And if you don't want that many all at once, this will freeze for up to 6 weeks and stay good, so that way you can serve it another time. But once you taste these, they will go pretty rapidly, because who doesn't love cake and candy rolled into one? Because that's essentially what this is. I have made some of the varieties you can make are, I especially love the lemon cake with the lemon frosting, and spice cake with cream cheese is good, and also the strawberry or cherry is really good. You can use any combination of flavors that you like, but I chose the carrot cake and the triple chocolate fudge because those seem to be all-time favorites for everybody. Alright, this is a good start for us. We're going to go ahead and take these. I'm going to put this back in the freezer, and then we're going to go ahead and take these and get them dipped so we can get them all made up. Okay, I've melted another pound of the vanilla candy coating or almond bark or whatever you want to call it. And I used the vanilla this time because since we're having carrot cake, I want to make them orange. You can buy already colored melting squares or melting candies. They're a little more expensive and really not worth the cost if you're going to do this. So I'm going to add my own coloring, because let's say I'm making the cherry, I don't want pink or red, then I can take the vanilla and turn it pink or red, and orange like I'm going to do here. You do not want to use any food coloring that is water-based, because as I said earlier when we were doing the peppermint almond bark, the water can cause the chocolate to congeal. You can find non-water-based food colorings in your specialty stores, and they usually come in a little tube like this. And it's real thick. It looks like a gel. I don't know, can you see that? I've used this quite a bit, as you can tell. But it's real thick like a gel, and you don't really need a whole lot. I take a little bit on the knife and then just kind of incorporate it in there. And this stuff does stain, so wear some gloves. Anyway, we're going to stir this up and try to get it the orange color that I'd like to use for my carrot cake balls. And it doesn't have to be a real bright orange, just something to distinguish it from the other cake balls. Like I said, sometimes I'll make 6 at a time, and people know what flavor they are by what color they are. So that's a pretty good orange color there. I think we'll use that right there. Okay, we're ready to dip our cake balls into the candy coating. And I find that this method is the easiest for me. I use a little corn skewer and stick it in the balls. I find that this leaves the smallest possible hole. I used to use a toothpick, but they were always falling off. It seems to hold on better with the corn skewer. Dip it down into the chocolate. Let it drip a little bit. Hold a teaspoon underneath of it to catch the drippings. And then take your spoon, pull it off the corn holder. And if you have any, you'll have a little bit of frosting in your spoon. Use that to fill in the holes. And this is the reason why we freeze the batter, the cake mixture, is so that it retains its shape when you're dipping them, because otherwise they would just break apart into your dipping chocolate and just make a big old mess, and they don't retain their shape. So this, like I said, this is the best method here. Just set it down in there, take your spoon, kind of roll the chocolate over the top of it, or the candy coating, and then place it on your waxed paper over here. Fill in the hole. Then we're going to take these and put them in the freezer for 5 or 10 minutes so that the candy hardens up. And then after that, you can just put them into a sealed container, and they don't need to be refrigerated afterwards. Just put them in a sealed container and they'll be good for about a week in a sealed container, just out on your countertop. Okay, that one needs a little more. There we go. And while you're in between batches, because like I said, this will make about 70 to 100 cake balls, about that size. It's probably a little bigger than an inch in diameter. And this is the time-consuming part, is individually dipping each one. You don't want to throw them into the candy coating all at once like I did with the pretzels, because then it would be a big mess. You just have just a big blob of candy coated cake pieces. But this is a little more presentable here in this shape. And we'll get these done and put in the freezer and show you the finished product here in just a moment. Alrighty, it looks like our cake balls have finally set. Can we see that? You can tell when they're set is when they're stuck to the paper and you have to kind of pry. Oh, I broke one. I guess I'll have to eat that one. But yeah, they should pop off in a nice solid piece like that. And put them in a covered container and store them. They don't necessarily need to be refrigerated. They will stay like this for a couple of days. Of course, I'm going to eat this one now. But yep, like I said, they don't have to be perfect. Leave the candy on the outside that's stuck to it, and you're good to go. Enjoy. Okay, this is what we have so far. This took about 4 hours to make all of this. This is about half of the carrot cake balls. They are not all done. I haven't even started on the triple chocolate yet. I'll do those tomorrow. And but you get an idea of how many it makes, and boy, they are so yummy. And here we have a single batch of cashew fudge, and it doesn't look like very much, so make a double batch. We have our chocolate covered pretzels, our vanilla peppermint bark, and our chocolate cashew bark. So here we have all this wonderful candy that we can now put into decorative containers to give to our family, friends, and co-workers. And trust me, they will appreciate all the effort that you put into it.